Good evening to everyone and welcome to today's wonderful evening with Dr. Murli Bharadwaj. Sprints. Sprints are these YouTube live free sessions, half an hour to 45 minutes. We revise around 100 most high-yield facts to become a topper in neetpg. You just need 50,000 high-yield facts that you need to master. So the whole idea is, how can a teacher can inspire you, can be your classmate, to study with you, to revise with you. There is more to revise than to teach. There is more to revise than to learn also. So that's the reason, always make your preparation very focused, very little. Today, a lot of things are free. WhatsApp study groups are free. YouTube live broadcast sessions are free. Teachers are free. So please feel free to be my classmate, roommate, benchmate, table mate, and prepare every day with the same energy for the neetpg. So I leave the phone number. You send a request on the WhatsApp, and Mary, our manager, will help you to join our WhatsApp study group. So we provide a lot of PDFs, MCQ discussions, etc. So very nice to see Viber, Mohan, Pawar, Atharva, Ravinder, and many more. Last time, when we conducted this kind of a sprint of 100 high-yield facts in 30 minutes, it got a very good response, almost 4,000 views in no time and almost 200 thumbs up. Please do that and encourage the teacher. Even teachers require appreciation from the students. So let's make the great beginning. Today we'll revise 100 very high-yield facts in general medicine for the tomorrow's neetpg in the sprint. So, doctor, JVP, sure short question. One of the favorite questions examiner will ask is, the height of the JVP reflects what? It reflects the pressure in the right atrium. Whereas pulmonary capillary wedge pressure is a measure of the pressure in the left atrium. Please don't forget, one of the favorite questions of the examiner. Now, if you look at the JVP, there are various waveforms. Every time you go to the neetpg, can the online students can punch? Is the voice loud and clear? Are you able to see the letters in the Word document very clearly or not? Please let me know. Yeah, please give your feedback, doctor. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Can you please punch? Very good. It is very clear. Thank you. The size of the font is okay. I hope so. You're able to see, right? So every neetpg you go, they will ask a question on A wave, C wave, V wave, X descent, Y descent. So remember, A wave, whenever the atrial contraction is there. So what happens in atrial fibrillation? There is no atrial contraction. That's the reason A wave is absent. C wave is caused by the bulging of the tricuspid valve into the right atrium whenever there is a isovolumic systole. Isovolumic systole is what you need to remember. V wave. So whenever there is an increased volume of the blood into the right atrium, whenever the ventricle is undergoing systole, then when the tricuspid valve is closed, that is the typical cause of the V wave. The next descent is because of the atrial relaxation and downward displacement of the tricuspid valve. And when does it happen? During that time, what is ventricle doing? Ventricle is undergoing systole. So please don't forget, X descent is ventricular systole. Why descent occur? Once more, descent means fall. Because of the opening of the tricuspid valve and a rapid flow of the blood into the right ventricle, atrium is emptying and the pressure inside the atrium will once more fall down. So it is the ventricular filling, rapid filling of the ventricle during the first 1/3 of the diastole is responsible for the Y descent, is what you need to remember. Now, the next high-yield topic, high-yield fact for the tomorrow's NEET PG is what are the abnormalities of the JVP. Fatafat, you need to do the revision. Raised JVP with a normal waveform. It means if there is a right heart failure or a fluid overload, A wave, C wave, V wave, X descent, Y descent, everything is normal. But there is a raised JVP. That means there is a right heart failure. Raised JVP, which is not pulsating, it stopped pulsating. That means superior vena cava obstruction. So there is a superior vena caval syndrome whenever there is any lymphoma or whenever there is any bronchogenic carcinoma. If it is causing the compression of the superior vena cava cannot drain into the right atrium, that lead to elevation of the JVP with the absent pulsation. Large A waves means A wave is contracting very strongly. So when will that do? When the atrium is contracting against a closed tricuspid valve, that will cause a giant A wave. Similarly, if there is any pulmonary stenosis, all the right-sided pathologies like tricuspid stenosis, pulmonary hypertension, in all this, there will be giant A wave where atrium need to contract very strongly. Similarly, left ventricular hypertrophy also. If it is there, then atrium need to contract very strongly to push the blood into the non-compliant left ventricle. That also lead to large giant A wave. Cannon A wave, it is just rising like a cannon. So where do you see that? Whenever complete heart block, junctional rhythm or AV dissociation with ventricular tachycardia, in all these conditions, the AV valve is in a closed state and the blood in the atrium is hitting a closed valve that rises the pressure like a cannon. Cannon A wave is seen in complete heart block, junctional rhythm, AV dissociation with the ventricular tachycardia. Absent A wave, atrial fibrillation. Similarly, Lance's sign, that is systolic giant CV waves, both V and C combined, they became giant. So V wave is when will you see V wave? V wave is whenever the ventricle is getting filled with voluminous blood, right? So whenever there is any tricuspid regurgitation, the regular blood and the regurgitant blood once more comes and fills into the ventricle. That lead to systolic V wave, giant V wave is what you need to remember. Then slow Y descent. So Y descent occur whenever the atrial blood is filling into the ventricle and the pressure in the atrium is falling down. If there is any stenosis, it is like a traffic jam, tricuspid stenosis. So slow Y descent is a feature of tricuspid stenosis. Similarly, a deep X wave, deep Y wave, where do you see? Constrictive pericarditis and pericardial tamponade is what you need to remember. All right, doctor. Then, cannon A waves, AV dissociation, giant A waves, typically whenever there is any pulmonary hypertension or whenever there is any right ventricular hypertrophy or left ventricular hypertrophy, then you find giant A wave, please don't forget. So that is all the first 4 high yield facts. Then what is Kussmaul sign? So Kussmaul sign means whenever there is any constant pericarditis or restrictive cardiomyopathy, normally at the time of inspiration, there is a negative intrathoracic pressure. So that should cause the jugular vein blood to move into the atrium. But whenever there is constitutive pericarditis, restrictive cardiomyopathy, then the jugular vein is not emptying into the heart. That's the reason the jugular vein, instead of collapsing normally during inspiration, it remain raised during inspiration, very prominent during inspiration, which is called a small sign which is seen in constrictive pericarditis and restrictive cardiomyopathy and right ventricular myocardial infarction is what you need to remember. Now, why Kussmaul is important? If Kussmaul is there, it is constrictive pericarditis. But Kussmaul won't be there if it is cardiac tamponade. See, one of the favorite questions is, how do you differentiate whether pericardium constricted and preventing blood from entering into the heart, or the pericardial fluid is compressing the heart and preventing its filling? So one is constrictive pericarditis, other is cardiac tamponade. Kussmaul is a feature of constrictive pericarditis. Kussmaul is not present in cardiac tamponade. Please don't forget this, the hot high-yield fact in the tomorrow's neetpg. Now, different types of pulses. Pulses alternans, one strong beat, one weak beat, left ventricular failure. Pulses bispherians, otherwise called collapsing, slow rising pulse, is seen in aortic regurgitation, hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy. Dicrotic pulse, that means two palpable waves, one in systole, one in diastole, is a feature of dilated cardiomyopathy. Jerky pulse is seen in hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy. Collapsing water hammer pulse, you raise the hand and the pulse falls down, collapses, aortic regurgitation. PDA, hyperdynamic circulation, ruptured sinus of Valsalva. In all these conditions, there is a diastolic runoff of the blood, and that leads to the development of the collapsing pulse, is what you need to remember. So, pulsus paradoxus. So, what is the meaning of pulsus paradoxus? Normally, only the pulse will weaken during inspiration, but it becomes so weak, more than 10 millimeters mercury. Normally, only if you look at the strength of the pressure in the pulse, inspiration versus expiration, right? Expiratory pulse, the pressure in the pulse will be 10 mm more than the inspiration. But if the difference between expiratory pulse, which is strong, and the inspiratory pulse, which is weak, is more than 10, bachcho, kya ho jata? The pulse almost become not palpable, but still heart sounds are there. That is the reason it is called paradoxus. Pulse महसूस नहीं हो रहा, मगर दिल का धड़कने महसूस हो रहा. That is the paradox about the pulsus paradoxus. It is seen in cardiac tamponade, constrictive pericarditis, asthma, airway obstruction, SVC obstruction. All these conditions you see pulsus paradoxus. So please don't forget, pulsus paradoxus is seen both in cardiac tamponade and also constrictive pericarditis. But Kussmaul sign is positive in constrictive pericarditis, but not in cardiac tamponade, is something that you need to remember. Next, one MCQ sure shot on heart sounds. So totally in general medicine, there are 520 topics, doctor. These 520 topics में आपको 7,000 to 8,000 points होता है, high yield facts. These 7,000-8,000 facts in these 512 topics in general medicine, हमने स्नैपशॉट्स बोल के एक ई बुक बना के माइंड मैप के फॉर्मेट में, एक माइंड मैप में पूरा आपको all the facts will be available. There will be a couple of multiple choice questions for you to solve. So 520 mind maps with 7,000 high yield facts we are publishing as a e-book PDF. Go to lagnograph.com, download the PDF, and you can do quick revision My guarantee to you, 30 out of 30 questions in the tomorrow's NEET PG, sure, short from this 512 short topics you need to know from the 7,000 high yield facts. Now, hard sounds. S1 is because of any valve closure. When does it occur? At the onset of systole. You listen S1, that means systole is starting. And where is it loud? It is loudest on the mitral area. S2 is because the aortic and pulmonary valve closure. It occurs at the end of the systole and the beginning of the diastole. S2 you heard. That means diastole begins. It is loudest at the left sternal border. S3 क्यों होता है? Whenever the ventricle fails, there is some amount of the blood left in the ventricle. If the ventricle fails, it is unable to pump into aorta. So some is left in the heart chamber. So next time when diastole happens, the incoming blood jumps into a pool of stagnant blood which could not be pumped by the ventricle in the earlier systole. So इसकी वजह से आपको ये आवाज सुनाएगा जिसका नाम है S3. S3 is the LV failure. S3 is the LV failure is what you need to remember. So when you listen this in the early part of the diastole, just after the S2, S3 is low pitched. You can't hear with the diaphragm. You can better hear with the bell, and it is often heard like a gallop. It almost merges with the S2. Then S4. S4 is also a diastolic sound. During the last 1/3 of the ventricular diastole, what do you listen? S4. It is because when the ventricle hypertrophy, because the patient has got hypertension, that lead to the development of S4. When the ventricle is non-compliant, during the last 1/3 of the ventricular filling, atria actually contracts. That time, if the ventricle is very stiff, like left ventricular hypertrophy, you listen the fourth heart sound is what you need to remember. Systolic click. It can be early or mid-systolic click. It is a high-pitched sound. Clicks are high-pitched, clicks are high-pitched. Where do you listen? You listen if there is any valvular stenosis like aortic stenosis, pulmonic stenosis, or if there is any mitral valve prolapse also lead to systolic click. So just a key point you remember, don't go too deep unless tomorrow you are a cardiologist. Even if you have become cardiologist, a heart sound koi sunta nahi, 2D को करेंगे, coronary angiogram करेंगे, लेफ्ट वेंट्रिकुलोग्राफी करेंगे और पेशेंट का ट्रीटमेंट करते हैं. फिर भी एंट्रेंस में ये सब क्रैप को पढ़ने का जरूरत पड़ेगा, राइट? बट गुड न्यूज इज देयर इज ओनली 50,000 क्रैप. Out of that, almost 30,000 points you can, one reading is enough. 20,000 points may, remaining 20,000 may, 15,000 second reading is enough. 5,000 points को 3-4 मरतबे पढ़ना पड़ेगा with clarity. That's very, very important, doctor, for the tomorrow's NEET PG. Now, opening snap, it is because of the stenotic mitral valve opening. It's a high-pitched sound during early part of the diastole is what you should remember. Now, what is the normal second heart sound? It has a A2 component, P2 component. A2 occur before the P2. And during expiration, what will happen? A2 and P2 are superimposed, a single sound is heard. But during inspiration, A2 precedes the P2 and that leads to the development of splitting. A2 is louder than P2, except in infants below 3 to 6 months is what you need to remember. High-yield facts, number 9, topic number 9. What are the abnormalities in splitting of the second heart sound? Normally, A2 P2 interval is less than 0.03 seconds in inspiration, right? And typically, by the time it is expiration, they both are almost superimposed. So when you call wide splitting, if the A2 P2 interval is more than 0.03 seconds during expiration, you call wide splitting. So what do you mean by wide variable splitting? During inspiration, the A2P2 interval increases more, already wide. And during inspiration, if the interval increases more, then you call wide variable splitting. So what do you mean by fixed splitting? That means A2P2 interval is there's a splitting. Normally, splitting should disappear in expiration, but it did not disappear both in expiration and also inspiration. Both the times you are seeing splitting means it is there, but it is not further increasing during inspiration. It is not further increasing during inspiration. It is increased. The splitting is increased more than 0.03, but it is seen both in inspiration and also expiration. So what is reversed or paradoxical splitting? So typically, splitting should occur during inspiration, but not in expiration. But if there is any delay of the left heart from emptying, like in left middle branch block or aortic stenosis, then there is a reversed or a paradoxical splitting. That means instead of splitting seen in inspiration, it will be seen in expiration and it will not there during the inspiration. So that's called reversed paradoxical splitting. So tomorrow's neetpg exam, they will ask a question. Where do you see reversed paradoxical splitting? You should have to answer. We see it in left bundle branch block aortic stenosis. Whenever the left heart emptying is delayed is what you need to remember. Nice to see Kumar Jitendra. Very nice explanation, sir. Very good. Thank you very much. And please remember to give a thumbs up, to share this video link to all your friends in the social media channels, and also call Mary. I leave the number below, and she will help you to join our WhatsApp study group. Right, doctor? Next comes apex beat. Apex beat को कहते हैं point of maximal impulse is apex beat. It is the inferolateral part of the precordium. Normally, it is in the fifth intercostal space in the mid-clavicular line. Don't forget. Displaced and thrusting, displaced and heaving, displaced and uncoordinated and dyskinetic. Where do you see? Displaced and thrusting whenever there is any volume overload condition. MR, AR, in all this, what is happening? Heart आगे पंप कर रहे, फिर वो पीछे आ रहे, और नेक्स्ट टाइम पंप करने के टाइम में regular venous return plus this regurgitant blood together become too much volume. That volume overload state apex become displaced and thrusting. Discrete and heaving, where do you see? Discrete. उसको पकड़ना है, कहाँ है? Where is the apex? Whenever there's any pressure overload like aortic stenosis and hypertension, when the ventricle is hypertrophied, it becomes discrete and heaving. Heaving means it will lift your finger and keep it lifted. Then it will be uncoordinated, dyskinetic whenever there's any left ventricular aneurysm. And a palpable first heart sound. It is snapping apex beat seen in mitral stenosis. Palpable, loud P2. Where is the pulmonic area, doctor? Pulmonic area is in the second left intercostal space. Even though pulmonary artery is arising from right ventricle, pulmonic area का मतलब right में नहीं है, left में है मेरे भाई, और left में कहाँ है मेरे भाई? Second left intercostal space, and typically palpable P2 can be heard when there is a severe pulmonary hypertension. So where do you see left parasternal heave? Right नहीं, left में पूरा parasternal area में heaving कहाँ होता? When the right ventricle is hypertrophied. If there is any pulmonary hypertension, when the right ventricle is hypertrophied, that lead to left parasternal heave and typically right ventricular hypertrophy. Palpable thrill, a thrill you can feel is called palpable thrill. is a feature in aortic stenosis, and this murmur of the aortic stenosis radiates into the carotids. Please don't forget. So these are some of the important 10 main points, topics, and almost you mastered 50 high-yield facts which are going to come in exam. So how do you auscultate bell of the steth for the low pitch, high amplitude sounds? Like mid-diastolic murmur of mitral stenosis is bell. Bell se sunai dega. And where will you listen, doctor? Left sternal border. Left sternal border, इसको neo-aortic area बोलते हैं. So ask the patient to sit forward, lean forward, and then hold the inspiration, because aortic regurgitation may the murmur sound and the lung sounds are more or less similar. So there's a reason. Listen when the patient sitting forward, holding his breath. In the left sternal border, neo-aortic area is the place where you listen aortic incompetence. So where will you roll the patient to the left and listen the apex in mitral stenosis? Mitral stenosis murmur is very localized murmur on the apex. Unlike the pansystolic murmur of the mitral regurgitation, which is diffused throughout the precordium, the mitral stenosis murmur is very localized murmur. Ask the patient to roll to the left or go and stand behind the patient. Feel where is the pulse apex first. There you put the bell. Whenever you are using bell, don't press it. Whenever you are using diaphragm, press it. That is the rule you need to remember. So where is the radiation of the murmurs? Aortic stenosis murmur radiates into the neck, carotids. Mitral incompetence, mitral regurgitation, pansystolic murmur radiates into axilla is what you need to remember. Now comes quickly the hot murmurs, which you need to master. So these are all regularly asked favorite questions of the examiner, doctor, which we need to remember. Systolic murmurs, diastolic murmurs, continuous murmurs, Gilbert in effect. Let's talk. Systolic murmur. Systolic कब होता है? First heart sound के बाद होने वाला चीज है systolic. Second heart sound के बाद, after second heart sound, what you listen is called diastolic. So systolic murmur begin after the first heart sound. And typically it will terminate before second heart sound, is what you need to remember. Diastolic, it is often associated with a component of second heart sound. It will end before the S1. Continuous means it is there together. So typically the aortic regurgitations murmur is early diastolic murmur. Mitral stenosis murmur is mid-diastolic murmur. All right? And Austin Flint murmur, which you see in aortic regurgitation, is also mid-diastolic murmur. Please don't forget, favorite questions of the examiner. Then aortic stenosis leads to systolic murmur. Mitral regurgitation leads to systolic murmur. It's a pansystolic murmur. Whereas aortic stenosis is an early systolic murmur. Continuous murmurs, they are not confined to one cycle, like PDA, patent ductus arteriosus, is a continuous machinery murmur. So what is Gilbert in effect? There is a coarse systolic murmur in aortic stenosis. And its sound is higher pitched, that means low amplitude, high pitch. And it is more acoustically pure if you hear it in the apex. Gilbert in effect. Aortic stenosis bole to aortic valve means, where is the aortic area, doctor? Right second intercostal space. But the Gilbert in effect will cause the murmur to be heard in the apex. That's the difference. Then you have different grades, grade 1, 4, and 6. I leave the literature for you. You need to review. One of the favorite questions. And every topic के अंदर 5 to 10 points मिलेगा आपको एक माइंड मैप में. उसी के अंदर आपको एक MCQ, उसका एक्सप्लेनेशन भी मिलेगा. वैसा 520 टॉपिक्स में डिवाइड कर दिया पूरा जनरल मेडिसिन को. So आपको totally 7,000 high yield facts and almost 1,200 MCQs you will solve by the time you finish these 514 topics. It hardly takes 20 to 25 hours to revise the entire general medicine. It's worth. Now, systolic murmurs, ejection systolic murmur, mid systolic murmur, late systolic murmur, throughout the systole, that means holosystolic murmur. You should know what are the causes. You should know what are the causes. Aortic stenosis, pulmonic stenosis lead to ejection systolic murmur. Typically, they are crescendo, decrescendo. Then mid-systolic murmur. Once more, aortic stenosis, subvalvular aortic stenosis, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, anything can cause mid-systolic murmur. Late systolic murmur, typically in the mitral valve prolapse. Holosystolic murmur, three conditions. MR, TR, VSD. MR, TR, VSD. In all these three, it is a pan-systolic murmur. Pan means you can't hear us. When you can't hear us, to what you hear is only murmur. Z, 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 like a honeybee sound you'll be listening. The pan-systolic murmur, you have to use the diaphragm. It has got a high frequency, low amplitude, is what you need to remember, doctor. Then comes diastolic murmurs. They are the low-pitched noises, best heard with the bell of the stethoscope. Early diastolic murmur, AR, PR. Mid-diastolic murmur, mitral stenosis, caricum murmur of the rheumatic fever. Similarly, the mid-diastolic murmur, whenever there is any, suppose if there is any regurgitation or a diastolic runoff, क्या हो जाएगा? All the blood which regurgitated, all right, will come back, and once more when the ventricle gets filled, that regurgitant blood and regular blood together will cross across a normal valve. That's the reason MR, VSD, PDA, high output state, complete heart block, in all these conditions, may regular regurgitant blood and also the regular blood together, too much blood across a normal valve. At the time when the left atrial blood is going into left ventricle during ventricular diastole, you listen the mid-diastolic murmur, even in the MR, VSD, PDA, high output state and complete heart block, is what you need to remember. Now, doctor, whenever there is any severe AR, you listen a mid-diastolic murmur. What is that called? Austin Flint murmur. Whenever left atrial myxoma, right atrial myxoma is there, that time also when the atrial blood is moving into the ventricle, there is an impedance and that leads to diastolic murmur. Similarly, tricuspid stenosis can lead to diastolic murmur, is what you have to remember. Now, when you see continuous murmurs, they're heard both during diastole and also the systole. You need to be very, very clear, doctor. So, patent ductus arteriosus, coronary AV fistula, rupture sinus of Valsalva, aortic, the ASD, cervical venous hum, anomalous left coronary artery, proximal coronary artery stenosis, blah, 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 blah. You should know all these 8 to 10 causes for the continuous murmurs is what you need to remember. So, doctor, with this, we come to the end of this quick 30-minute sprint. हमारा attention online class में 30 minutes से ज़्यादा नहीं होगा. But in 30 minutes, at least 100 facts we should assimilate and do the revision. So please go to the learnograph.com, download today only the PDF of the ebooks, which are called snapshots, which will help you rapid revision of these 50,000 high yield facts. Thank you so much, and kindly share this link to all your friends in WhatsApp groups and give the likes, and let's make this very popular concept of sprinting. Whenever I get time, I'll conduct a sprint. Thank you.